what you think is possible is only limited by the types of people that you surround yourself with. I remember my first job was $4.75. Maybe I'm aging myself a little bit, but that's what my time was worth at the time. Maybe I'm aging myself a little bit, but that's what minimum wage was at the time. Actually, I remember even before that, I used to cut grass for $10 a lawn. I used to wash cars for a few bucks because that's all I kind of really knew how to do. My dad was really good at washing cars and keeping them clean, so I did that for other people. And then I remember every single time I got an incremental little raise, I felt like $1 million. One thing I can tell you is every single time I had one of those jobs, I worked really hard to try and make sure I was the best car washer or the best lawn cutter. I worked at a deli, and oh boy could I slice prosciutto, even for the little old ladies who wanted it done just in a specific way. Although I did gain too much weight when I worked at the deli, because 5 slices for you, 1 slice for me. And the owner of the deli was giving us pizza and all kinds of stuff that he probably shouldn't have been doing at the time. But anyways, I digress. Then my buddy called me and said there was a job at a landscaping company that paid $25 an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am going to be rich. What he failed to mention to me at the time, that was the guy who ran that company was an absolute maniac, hiring kids that were well under the working age, working them 77 hours a week in crazy 100-degree weather with no breaks, but he paid $25 an hour, and when you were the age I was and you're doing 77-hour weeks, that is actually bank. But it was interesting because when I was in that cycle, the guys that had been there, some of them had been working there for like 5 or 6 years. And when I realized how much time I was trading and how miserable their existence was, the money couldn't keep me there, and I ended up quitting, and I went to find another. I changed high-end tires on NHL players' vehicles. I did collections and receivables. I did a lot of different random stuff. I worked at a grocery store and worked my way up through all of the different sections. I was a bag boy, worked the fish market, worked at the deli, the butcher shop. Realized you made tips for bringing bags to little old ladies' cars. And every single time I had a job, I was fascinated at the people that were there. Some of the people that were absolute lifers at these places because they were just happy in the position that they were in. And I was happy that they were happy. They had found what worked for them. They wanted to watch the games on the weekend. They found the routine. They could golf. They could fish. They lived the life that they wanted to live. I personally never fit into any of those lifestyles. And I kept searching. Came to a little old town called London, Ontario. Got a job as a bouncer. I was about 155 pounds. Didn't know how to fight. Had to learn how to talk very quickly. At a place where there were quite a few fights. I realized the barbacks made a lot of money. Got a job as a barback. Then I became a supervisor of the barbacks because nobody was in charge and nobody was showing up to work. And I kept being the person that would just show up when nobody else would. Then I became a DJ, bartender, manager, marketing coordinator because there was no marketing coordinator and there was nobody in charge of the budgets that the big brands would give us. And the staff was literally drinking the budgets, and I saw larger opportunities. And I kept trying to get around different levels of people, some in management, some that owned other companies, some people that were high level at the brands. And I always wanted to learn from them what made them tick, what type of job that they had. I wasn't so concerned about the compensation and the money that they made, but a lot of them shared with me insights into how they scaled and how they got to the levels that they got. And a lot of them told me about the investments they were making outside of their jobs. I still remember one of my favorite people, Tim, had been buying apartment buildings as he worked for Molson for years. Tim, if you're watching this, still love you, buddy. I know I see you in Bayfield from time to time, but we definitely need to catch up. And he probably made more money investing in real estate than he ever made working a very high-level job for a company like Molson. Eventually, that's what led me to entrepreneurship in real estate. My wife actually threw me off a cliff into real estate. I never wanted to get my license. I didn't think they worked hard. That's a story for another day. When I got into real estate, I went to a very traditional real estate brand office and sat down in the bullpen. And there was a bunch of lifers there, and all they were doing were complaining about the market. So I went and I found mentors and people that were in much bigger markets doing cutting edge things. This was back in like 2012, 2013. Followed a guy named Gary Vee, started doing videos, and people told me I had stupid videos, waste of time, you're crazy. Started doing listing videos when nobody did them. Everybody said, wasting your time, you're crazy. But those weren't the people I was listening to. I was actually listening to the people that I had went and found that were thinking much higher level. Stumbled across a relationship with a guy named Scott McGilvery. He had started an investment group. Everybody made fun at him and his partner about that in the beginning, I'm sure, when they started in the basement with 25 people. And they built that to over 25,000 people globally. And we are still in partnership with them and still speak on his stages every single year when he brings all of these investors into North America to give a state of the market and talk about what's happening. It's like a farmer's market for investors. Talk about Found another dude in 2018 through a connection of mine. His name was Ryan Serhan, and he was working at Nest Seekers at the time. And he was on $1 Million Listing New York, but so was like 25 other people. And I'm sure people talk trash about him, but he had a vision that he wanted more for himself. I flew down to New York with 2 of my team members at the time, shot a video podcast with him. I actually never aired it because we just became friends. He told me a bunch of secrets about real estate, what his vision was, which at the time, I'm sure some of his team members that are no longer with him thought was crazy and he'll never accomplish it. And he's still a very close friend of ours to this day, and now he owns Serhan, one of the most followed real estate brands, if not the most followed real estate brand in the entire world. I say all of this to say, all of those people, all of those ecosystems have driven me to think bigger with the vision of what I have for my company and my life than I ever thought possible. Through all of those years, I went through incredible adversity, had a period of my life where I dealt with addiction at a very, very high level, found an incredible wife who saw more in me than I saw in myself, constantly searched for people who had a positive outlook on life and a limitless expectation for themselves, but were also disciplined and accountable. I ran as far away from people who were the complete opposite of those things. People who complained, talked trash about other people, who had a limited view of what an industry or a market cap could be, and people who were not disciplined in their own personal life or accountable to the people that were around them. I struggled for a decade plus at not holding people accountable or letting the wrong people into my ecosystem, which I will share stories on this channel about that as well. But I just left a call with Dan Martell in a room of people who probably run companies that are $20 to $500 million range. And what's insane is just being around those people, what I realized is the scale of their problems are actually... What I realized about being in that call was people are just people. All of the people in that room are no different than me and you, but their perception of what's possible is massively different than maybe what you or I made. And me making the commitment to myself to be in that call 52 times this week is going to absolutely change the trajectory of where I'm going. So if you'd like to be a part of that and learn some of the things that I'm learning, then you can hit subscribe and hang out or send me a DM on Instagram. I love being in community. But if nothing else, take away from this message that your level of thinking is only going to be limited by the people that you surround yourself with. I promise you that.